Good morning, all. Dr. Jared here, proud to be coming to you with our summer weight loss masterclass. If you're watching this near the recording, it's likely early to mid April. And, it's right, summer's right around the corner. We've had a couple of 70-degree days. And I think for so many, that makes us think about where are we at with our health, especially with our weight. And so there's a decent amount of people that are watching this that have lost weight before, that maybe gained weight over the holidays. They're not feeling their best. And, my first question as we really go through this is, how much better would you feel if you did take 10, 20, 30 pounds off? How much more proud would you be? And more importantly, if you know that that's something you need to do, what's stopping you? Because ultimately, at this point in our life, there's ChatGPT, there's Ask Siri or Google, or the amount of information out there is just massive. There's a massive, massive, massive amount of information. The tough part is deciphering it. And so for those of you that are watching this masterclass, our main point, or the reason that we even do these, considering how much information is out there, is our goal is to make it easy to understand, to take 10, 20, possibly even more hours of research, data, actionable steps, and simplify it down to an area or an amount that is 60 to 70 minutes total, with applicable action steps, so that you can have multiple choices. Typically, we're looking for a no cost or an easy action step, a probably low cost or low time, and then possibly a bigger investment, either of your time or money, with supplementation or a variety of other things, but really trying to make it fit what you're looking for. Because when you talk about weight loss specifically, the farther that we get into the 2000s, there's more factors that affect weight loss. There's lots of people who say, I used to just do this and I lost weight, and now, my body's weight loss resistant, or my hormones are off, or I'm severely fatigued. And so as a starting point, I'm going to say that for most, weight loss comes down to three things. Our limitations to weight loss come down to three things. Number one, habits. Number two, beliefs. And number three, physical limitations. And so we're going to go through each of those to really look at what does it take to get you there. Now, I apologize. I just realized my computer is almost out of battery, so I am going to plug it in here, and then we'll keep right on going. All right, so starting with habits. In my favorite book, or one of my favorite books, I should say, Atomic Habits, it talks about how people define themselves as not what they want, but based on their habits. So for instance, if you go to the gym in the morning for a long enough period of time, you typically would transition your beliefs about yourself from somebody who can't get up in the morning or is not a morning person to somebody who's a gym rat or something like that. If you just didn't allow yourself to buy certain processed foods or put minimum standards around those processed foods, or if you didn't ever order dessert at a restaurant, maybe except on special occasions or something like that, you eventually become somebody who just doesn't order dessert. But what they said in Atomic Habits is that people really define themselves by their habits. And so by changing your habits, you have the opportunity to become a different person. In fact, over a long enough period of time, your brain will assume that you were always like that. You may have that memory like when you have children, or maybe when you had a pet, where it's like, it feels like we've just always had this dog. They've just always been part of our family. Similarly, I can say in my family growing up, we definitely cooked from scratch sometimes, but we also had a decent to large amount of processed food availability as well. But now if you come to Thanksgiving, if you look in our house or our pantry, you'll find that, so much of it's made from scratch. And even like holiday traditions have been transitioned into healthier options, grass-fed meats, way less processed food with stuffings or whatever. And it just feels like we've always done that. But the reality is it's not true. We've done this over, 10 or 15 years, but it's now normal. And it feels like we've done it for the entirety. Even some old family traditions, like there's an Italian recipe called raviolas that is 5 generations old, all the way from my great-great-grandmother coming over from Italy, that we've adapted to be with sourdough starters and grass-fed meats and cheeses and just a variety of things that even when we have something that might be a vacation meal, we figured out how to adapt it to a much, much healthier version. So that book, Atomic Habits, if you're a current client, is complimentary to you. I buy 100 of them at a time, and I just believe that book has so much opportunity to change the way that we think, behave, act. And so if you're willing to read it, we have it complimentary for you. The second thing, beliefs. So the way that we speak to ourselves and the way that we really speak about ourselves. So, one of the things that I really like, there's a Tony Robbins video that I watched one time. It talked about what's the difference between somebody who's taking a break from smoking and somebody who's not a smoker. And again, just to, paraphrase the video, he talked about if you ask somebody and you're talking about smoking and they say, it's been 40 days since I had a cigarette. His argument is at some point you're planning on having another cigarette because you're talking about the amount of days since you've had one, because you're still defining yourself as a smoker that's, quote, trying to quit. Where if you quit smoking and somebody offers you a cigarette, you just say, no, thank you, I'm not a smoker. And you could say that for alcohol. You could say that for, eating bread or dessert. Like, would you guys like dessert? Nope, we don't do dessert after dinner, or whatever it might be. But thinking about that, what's your belief system? And there's a series of things that you can do, affirmations or incantations, which you could look up online, watch a quick YouTube video. But affirmations or incantations, where it's like you can eventually shift that belief system over time to really believe that you're like that. They've also done studies specifically on how you define your body. So if you define yourself as, for instance, a fat person, even if you lose weight, but inside your beliefs are that there's a high likelihood of self-sabotage. So you really want to figure out, how do you think of yourself? Are you a fit person? Are you a healthy weighted person? Who are you? And then really working backwards to get to that point. So something to think about. The last thing is physical limitations. This is more prevalent than ever with the amount of genetically modified food, toxicity, just a whole series of other things. But you hear this a lot as women go through, perimenopause or menopause, as men get older, but you're hearing it from younger and younger and younger people, because there's a reality specifically around toxicity and people having too much toxicity and therefore retaining weight. But there's also serious amounts of hormone imbalances, from thyroid issues to stress hormones to imbalanced sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone in women, testosterone in both men and women. You may know this or you may not, but for instance, people who carry significant excess body fat actually produce from the fat, from the result of the increased fat, they produce on average a lot more estrogen. And estrogen is inversely related to testosterone, where testosterone has a lot more lean muscle building, clean thinking. And so, even for women now, they're showing that there's a large amount of women who, while they need a lot less testosterone than men, actually have major testosterone deficiencies. And many of those people are significantly overweight. Not all, but many. And so, there's things to look at, because of course there's the easy ways. I mean, holy cow, if you watch the NCAA tournament or any TV show, even if you're more Netflix or YouTube, you see things for Ozempic, Wegovy, all these like easy fix hormone replacements, even bioidentical hormone replacements, testosterone replacements, all this kind of stuff. And, while there is absolutely a time and a place for that, some of you that are watching this very much need some of those things. And I say need some of those things. I would be more in the hormone arena. I would argue against, Wegovy or Ozempic is some of the more dangerous of the weight loss or diabetes medications. And we'll talk about that briefly here momentarily. But, the first thing is, if your body's not producing them, what is it missing, or what is it getting too much of? So for instance, in our current environment, even people who eat healthy tend to miss a lot of nutrients, a lot of nutrients. And so if you're not supplementing with, for instance, a healthy whole food multivitamin, if you're not looking at things as you're aging for instance, thyroid support, adrenal support, sex hormone support, those are all supplements that we do carry in the office. And if you need some direction, you do, as a client, have complimentary appointments available with Mackenzie, our nutritionist. So she can walk you through which ones would make the most sense for you, what could help, and can really look at that. Additionally, on top of, the supplementation, it's what you're eating. So for instance, sugar and refined carbohydrates tend to cause more weight gain than even the calories that you're consuming. They can cause blood sugar imbalances. They can cause fatigue. Also, some of the bad fats, so trans fats and processed fats, like soybean oil and many forms of canola oil, they can really mess up your hormones. Additionally, certain other deficiencies of vitamins, like vitamin D, with it being cold all winter, most people, if they're not supplementing with vitamin D, I shouldn't say most people, many people can become vitamin D deficient. So vitamin D is required for the production of many of the hormones. And then there's also medications which significantly inhibit them, like specifically like statins for cholesterol can really mess up certain hormones that affect your body's metabolism, antidepressants and sleeping meds. And there's just a lot of very common medications. And so you may not realize it, but some of your limitation may be coming from a side effect of your medication. So if you are on multiple medications, you can try and work with your doctor, or we're happy to help give you some advice on how to talk to your doctor or how to manage and work around those deficiencies that are created. So those are a few things to think about. The last thing to think about for hormones is exercise. So specifically high intensity exercise, whether it's like HIIT training where you're getting your heart rate way up and then calming it down, or specifically heavy weightlifting, are very much linked to not only things like preventing osteoporosis, but increasing your metabolism for weight loss and healthy body shaping, but also helping your body make more of the hormones that it takes. And certain things that people do actually inhibit that. Like, for instance, people who take high amounts of like a pre-workout powder that's chock full of caffeine and other things to even feel like working out, actually may be inhibiting some of the hormones that they would naturally get. Also, people who exercise way too long, like somebody who runs for 2 hours every day or something like that, or doesn't work out intensely enough, maybe like going for a slow walk or something, still good for you, but maybe missing some of the benefits from those sharper sides of exercise. So we're really going to cover a few things in this masterclass. So as far as workouts are, I'm going to say, quite a bit more straightforward, and we're happy to point you in the right direction with workouts. But with workouts, like I just went through and to itemize it, either heavy weightlifting or HIIT training, which is high intensity interval training, tend to be the two best for weight loss and hormone balancing. So those would be the two to look at first. There is within more cardiovascular exercise, there's a range, like if you're on the treadmill, that they call the fat burning zone, which is typically about 70 to 80% of your target heart rate, which does burn more fat calories, But if you can get over the fat burning zone, research shows that you're going to burn more fat over time. And so it's not necessarily during, but after the workout as your metabolism stays raised. So, going back to what I would call some of the cheat ways to lose weight. And I say cheat very loosely. I'm not telling you what's right and wrong. I'm telling you or encouraging you to think if this makes sense for you. So for instance, one of the things that, you hear all the time, like having your cake and eating it too, it's very rare to be able to do both. And so there was just another study released. You may have heard it on, it was I think it was on Fox News or something recently, where they talked about Splenda. Now, this research has been out for 15, 20 plus years, but there's research on Splenda, there's research on regular soda versus diet soda, but there's quite a few people that use artificial sweeteners to still do some of the things they want, thinking that it's helping protect their weight. But actually, essentially, all studies show that using artificial sweeteners or diet drinks actually cause more weight gain than their sugar-based counterparts. And the reason is pretty simple, because like when you consume Splenda, it's a manufactured sugar that's been turned into a non-digestible sugar. However, in your blood, when your body consumes it, your body thinks it's sugar. So even though it can't absorb it, it causes you to release insulin. Insulin is the hormone released by your pancreas that helps take sugar out of your blood and into your cells for energy. As you likely know, type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance diabetes, meaning that your body's producing too much insulin because there's been too much sugar over too long of a period of time, and your cells can't take all of it in for energy, and your body's becoming less efficient in turning it into body fat. And so you then need these different medications to cause your body to produce less insulin, or there's a variety of different mechanisms of action for insulin or type 2 diabetes drugs. But really, what's it come down to? Your body's producing too much insulin. So even if you didn't consume sugar, if you're producing more insulin, it still causes links to insulin resistance, and it makes you hungrier. And when you're hungry, over time, most people eat. And so that's where the other issue comes in with that. And with diet soda, with Splenda in your coffee or in your desserts or in your Jello or, whatever it might be. So, looking at that, artificial sweeteners are one of those cheats. Now, there is a healthy replacement for that. Stevia is probably the healthiest replacement. Xylitol is a close second, but there are certain things that are essentially spices. Like stevia is derived from an herb, but that's just the reality is that there's not a free lunch when it comes to sugar replacements. Even stevia and xylitol do slightly raise your insulin levels, but it's much more minor than sugar, and then definitely more minor than the artificial sweeteners. So that's something to consider. The other thing is, there's always been some sort of weight loss drug. I mean, I say always, for the last 30 plus years, there's been a way to do it. And I say 30, it's really probably been more 50, because even going back to HCG, the hormone that was is naturally produced in your body and is most commonly raised with pregnancy or with different times in a woman's menstrual cycle. Extracting HCG has been shown to help people be less hungry and to do those super low calorie eating programs for a certain period of time. Now, there are risks with low calorie things. Your body can go into starvation mode. It can weaken your metabolism. It can actually have some long-term. Now, there are healthy ways to do low calorie eating, and it can be a very good way to metabolically reset, to crave less. So, but typically when you're doing low calorie, it should be under the advisement of a healthcare professional that's going to help make sure you do it right and get the results without doing the damage to your body. So I'm even going to go over later in the second masterclass a way to do low calorie, as it is often the fastest way to lose significant amounts of weight. However, there's other hormone-based weight loss, which is watching certain types of fats, eating more protein, really cutting refined carbs that help your body reset those hormones and, make a big difference. So, but going back to, from the 70s with HCG, there was certainly many side effects for that. In the 90s, I can't think of the name right now, and I didn't write it down, but there was, the physician-guided weight loss where they prescribe a prescription. While people lost weight, there was a ton of heart issues and heart attacks that went with that one. There's also certain eating plans like the Atkins diet. And as you probably know, like Dr. Atkins, although there's some very good principles in the Atkins diet, by not addressing the types of meats and the qualities and that sort of thing, a lot of people ended up with toxicity issues. And in fact, Dr. Atkins had a heart attack at a very young age. So there's been some things that have worked, but they've also not been nearly as effective and nearly as scientific or research based as the current environment we're in. And this new one, the Ozempic, I think it's called Wachovia, but whatever these drugs are, there's a few factors in them. Number one, they're really, really hard on your body. When I was more active in CrossFit, I had a CrossFit trainer one time when he was talking about steroids and all these weight loss drugs. He's like, I don't subscribe to the live fast, die young, get buried in a thinner coffin philosophy. He's like, I subscribe to healthy living and the outcomes that come with it. And I embrace the suck. Now, that might not be a topic that you love, the word embrace the suck. I don't know who first popularized it, but certain Navy SEALs like, David Goggins or, I'm blanking on that as well. But, there's different people who talk about, there's also a great book called The Comfort Crisis that really talks about by embracing the suck or doing hard things, how people are actually happier. And I would make that argument to you as you're thinking about summer weight loss, or really what you're doing is changing your habits. I would make the argument to you about, okay, so what does it really look like to change your habits? Can you enjoy embracing the suck? Can you be proud? But more than that, can you be happy? And in most cases, people absolutely, once they get through the early part, the hardest part, they actually have more happiness and more joy as they're doing things that are hard, but that very much benefit them and their long-term health. Plus, really with weight loss, they're short-term. But when you think about it, so for instance, like the eating programs that we're going to talk about, the ones that are more intense, people tend to lose anywhere from 10 to 30 plus pounds in a 30 to 42 day period. Even with like Ozempic, they talk about losing 20 plus pounds over a 12-month period, because really they're not asking the person to make any other changes. And that's the easy part. That's why drugs are kind of a false hope, is that you don't have to change other things typically, and they're going to quote unquote control your blood sugar. But if you look at the side effects of those things, they can do significant damage to your pancreas. So you could have, if you take it over a long enough period of time, permanent issues with your insulin. So depending on what age you go on it, they also have significant links to cancer, thyroid tumors specifically. I know a lot of people who have had large amounts of depression on this, and that is a known side effect, depression and suicidal behaviors. There's links to damage to your kidneys, to your gallbladder, to, you name it. Drugs have side effects, but these drugs especially have side effects. So I do also know a lot of people who have lost 30 pounds and they're keeping it off as long as they're on the medication. But the question is, are they keeping it off healthy? Are they going to live longer? Because statistics show that actually many of, for instance, like diabetes drugs with controlling the blood sugar, they may not actually extend your life, with the exception of the emergency death that might occur from going into a diabetic coma or having a diabetic seizure. And so they almost trick people to thinking their blood sugar is good so they can keep their bad habits. And so, again, with these weight loss drugs, if that's for you and you feel like, hey, this is what I like doing, nobody's saying you should or shouldn't do it, but they have a heck of a lot more side effects than doing it naturally. And that's ultimately what to think about. So if you're on one of those drugs, or if you're really, this is speaking to you, then, either start one of these programs, and I'm going to start with the first and the easiest of them today, and then go into the other two on the next masterclass. But really, what we're talking about is how to change your habits. So the first one is the core plan. If you're a current client and you've read any of the books, the core plan, the key tenet of the core plan is getting 1% better every day. And it's something obnoxious. Like, even if we did 1% better every day, you'd be like 300% better in a year or something like that. So, even 1% is actually a stretch. But what if you started to hold certain minimum standards? So a few things. So the first step, if we're going to talk about 1% better every day, I'm going to talk about 6 to 7 things that you could do. And just picking one of them would likely help you feel better and lose weight. So the first one is to reduce or cut out refined carbohydrates. So just no longer having bread during the day, or not eating cereal, toast, waffles, pancakes, rice, whatever it might be. Pick a period of time, or restrict the amount that you're doing. But cutting that out is going to, over time, lower the amount of insulin your body makes. And because it lowers the amount of insulin your body makes, you're going to release more what's called leptin, which is your fat burning hormone, and you're going to start to cut the kind of weight that you want. And the second thing, and we already covered it, cutting out artificial sweeteners completely. So just flat out cutting them out. Don't even change your eating. Just don't consume artificial sweeteners. That would be the second thing to consider. The third one, eat the same, but change your cooking oils. So hydrogenated or processed cooking oils are linked to inflammation and weight gain and hormone imbalance. So while we'll go into this more on the next part of the masterclass, the fats or oils to cook with would be coconut oil, avocado oil, or grass-fed butter would be the 3 main ones. A lot of people ask about olive oil. Olive oil is fine at low temperatures or eaten raw, like in salad dressings. And salad dressing would be another example of switching your salad dressings, just the salad dressings with good oils in them, could really help your body with weight or weight gain. But changing just your cooking oils would be one thing to do as part of the core plan. The next thing, getting enough water. There's huge amounts of studies that are linked to weight loss and then getting enough water. I can't tell you how many people think they drink enough water and they don't come close. The minimum for water consumption for weight loss is half your body weight in ounces. So if you are 200 pounds, you need to consume 100 ounces of water, plus an ounce for every ounce of caffeine. So if you also have 12 ounces of coffee in the morning, if you're a 200-pound person, you need to consume 112 ounces of water. If you exercise, you sweat more, you should really consume more water than that for weight loss. If you're over 250 pounds, odds are you're going to need to drink a gallon of water or more. And so this is something people don't do enough. And one of the misconceptions with that as well is they'll often drink water and have it go right through them. So getting enough salt or getting enough sodium and potassium. So using sea salt, using Himalayan sea salt on your food. There's a company that I like that's called LMNT, which is really element without the vowels, that have sodium, potassium, sweetened with stevia, but you can use that for if you like flavored water versus like Crystal Light or some of those different ones that are full of artificial colorings and artificial sweeteners that can really have a counter effect. But consuming enough salt, and then if you're retaining water, getting potassium to get the water out of your system. So red, yellow, and orange fruits and vegetables have the highest amount of potassium, but potassium causes you to get the water, if you retain water, out of your system. But getting enough water. Another thing is fasting. So maybe you want to eat the same, but you want to either intermittently fast. So what intermittent fasting is, intermittent fasting would be, for instance, not eating over a 12-hour period or more. So like, let's say you don't eat from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., things like that. Or maybe you go 14 hours or 16 hours, but not eating for those periods of time. Or for instance, like fasting for 24 hours. So just consuming water for either, 24 hours, like every Tuesday or once a month or once every other week. But fasting is a good way to clear undigested food out of your system. It's actually shown that while you're fasting, that your growth hormone goes up, which growth hormone is linked to healthy sex hormone production like testosterone, metabolism, things like that. So growth hormone can go way up. It's linked with mental clarity. It's linked with decreased insulin sensitivity. So fasting would be another thing that you could consider. The last two here would be changing breakfast. So having breakfast always be healthy with some healthy carbs, but mostly higher in protein. So the two breakfasts that I personally eat most often are the one that I'm doing today. So I actually have them down here. So I'll take a protein shake first. So with water, salts. I like to use a little of the Max Living Vitamin C, but most of the time I'm using our grass-fed whey protein. So this has 20 grams of protein in it. It has a bunch of different vitamins and minerals. It's got a whole probiotic, prebiotic, and enzyme blend. It's from grass-fed cows. It's low heat processed, meaning that you're going to absorb all the protein that you consume. So it's only 20 grams of protein. If I'm working out that day, I'll do 1.5 scoops to get it to 30 grams. Many times, additionally, I'll then also consume, I'll heat up on the stove bone broth. So this is organic bone broth. Bone broth like this is 80% protein with a little fat and a little carbs. So essentially, it almost allows your body to stay in a fast. But per 40 calories, per 8 ounces, there's 8 grams of protein, which is 32 of the 40 calories are from protein. So I'll typically drink like 20 to 30 ounces of bone broth as well. So if I'm working out, which most days I am, I'm trying to consume 40 to 50 grams of protein in the morning, spaced out over several hours. So I'll drink that over 2 to 3 hours. You'll notice right next to my computer, you'll see a protein shaker. I'll drink that while I'm at the office. But that's one very healthy, very low calorie way to keep your metabolism high and be full. The other is to make a protein smoothie. So I'll use the other Max Living protein, the Pure Path or the bone broth protein with mixed berries, spinach, some sort of healthy fat, either coconut milk, peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, something like that, or some sprouted seeds like pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds. I'll use the protein and then ice and water and blend that together so that I'm getting fruits, vegetables, so high nutritional content plus protein plus fats. So that's a blended, and I'll typically have 24 to 32 ounce smoothie. Another great way to do it. In the morning, I personally try and avoid refined carbohydrates as much as possible, unless I'm going for a long run or I do consume some refined carbohydrates after I play basketball. Because you're burning through so many simple carbs your body does need. So again, you're refining it based on what your body's needs are. The very last thing is to increase protein. So you notice on here, many people, when they're struggling with weight gain or weight loss resistance, they're just flat out not eating enough protein. The ideal protein is at least a third of your body weight in protein. So if you're 200 pounds, like 67 grams of protein. If you're working out, you want to eat about half your body weight in protein. And they've changed their tune on how quick protein goes in and out of your system. It used to be every 2 to 3 hours. There's still some data that validates that. I'm still an advocate for spreading protein out. But for instance, with like meats, they've shown that certain types of meat can stay in your bloodstream for up to 12 hours so that protein can last longer. And that's where they've linked like intermittent fasting to still having healthy amounts of protein, not losing weight, not becoming deficient. So, really some of the things to focus on are the quality of the protein. So grass-fed, free range, not fed antibiotics or animal byproducts or things like that. And that's also true for dairy. Conventional dairy has a lot of hormones in it. It has antibiotics in it. It's got a lot of bad fats where, if you're going to consume dairy, ideally you're consuming it raw, but you also want to have 100% grass-fed. There's a type of cow called A2, which is linked to it. So we mostly consume grass-fed raw cheese for the dairy that we consume. But in some cases, we'll do like grass-fed milk or something like that. But those are some of the main focus points. So the mystery word to start is summer. Mystery word to start is summer. We will talk to you on Tuesday. Have a very blessed